Today and this month, we are called to make our connection with the sacred. And that's a deeper connection with our sacred self. And what we'll discover as we begin to make this connection, as we deepen in knowing who we truly are, as opposed to who we might think we are, we automatically make that sacred connection to the divine. So is everybody ready to experience a profound connection with your sacred self this morning? Great. So a lot of us have a fear of making a deep connection with ourselves because we're afraid of what we might find if we look deep inside. Yet in truth, the deeper we look, the closer we get to making that connection with our sacred self, right? So we say in New Thought that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We don't say we are spiritual beings having a human experience, but only when we are thinking and feeling and acting spiritually. We are always spiritual beings, no matter what. And so this month, we're calling for you to step into a spirituality that embraces and encompasses the fullness of your humanness. All of it, strengths, weaknesses, and everything in between. What I like to say, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's only as you let go of the lesser in your life that you can take a hold of the greater. It's only as you drop confusion can you entertain peace. And it's only as you transcend doubt and fear that you can be lifted up to those mountain tops of your inner life. So the lesser that I invite you to let go of this morning, the confusion that I invite you to let go of this morning, is the idea that your human foibles make you any less divine. You are divine just as you are. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So here's your assignment for this week. Got your notes? You guys taking down your assignment? Okay. Find someone that you trust in your life, someone you really trust, who you know really loves you, and share with him or her some deep fear that you have, some deep, dark secret about yourself, something that you've been hiding, something that you try to keep obscured in your life, something that you may be ashamed of, something that says to you that you are inherently flawed or bad or stupid. Get my drift? Something that you don't want anyone else to know, and you even hide it from yourself. So tell them that you want to do this before you start so that you can get it out in the open, which will in turn release the hold that this secret has on you so that you can see your divinity right in the middle of this. Tell them that their only job is to love you right through it, just as you are. Not to try to fix you, or even tell you, oh, it's not so bad. But just love you and accept you. So if someone asks you to be that someone for them, consider it a sacred honor to do that for them. So that's your homework. And now I'm going to read this poem by Oriah Mountain Dreamer. Has anybody heard of Oriah Mountain Dreamer? Yeah, Catherine has. She wrote this most amazing poem called The Invitation. And that's what we're inviting each other to this month, is to find that deeper connection with our sacred self. And that is to uncover all those things that keep us from feeling like we're divine. And so I want to share this poem with you this morning as we begin our month's work together. And it goes like this. she writes, "It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals, or if you have become shriveled and closed from further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fix it or obscure it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own. If you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, to be realistic, to remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you are telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. If you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it's not pretty, every day, and if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand on the edge of the lake and shout to the sliver of the full moon, yes! It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after a night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. Isn't that beautiful? I want to know if you truly like the company you keep in those quiet moments. And if you don't or you're not sure, this month's invitation is for you to move to a yes. This month asks you to deepen your connection with your sacred self. Nelson, that goes for you too. In order for us to make a deeper connection with our inherent wholeness, I'm going to ask you 3 questions this morning that are found in this poem. I'm going to suggest that when you can answer yes to each one of these questions, you will be on your way to connecting with your wholeness. And the first one is from the poem. I want you to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. If you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. To thine own self be true. That's a hard one to do, isn't it?
Can you repeat it?
It is. Because we want to please everyone else. Diane and I have learned that being ministers of a church. We want to please everybody. But we can't please everybody all the time. But what we have to do is be true to ourselves and do what we think is for the common good. And so I know that each one of us has this problem in our own lives, that trying to please people, we betray ourselves. And so the first person we have to be true to is ourselves. The next one is, I want you to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand on the edge of the lake and shout to the sliver of the full moon, yes. And finally, I want to know if you can see beauty even when it's not pretty every day, and if you can source your own life from its presence. So we'll explore each one of these questions in order that we can get a deeper sacred connection with ourselves. So we spoke about, can you disappoint another to be true to yourself? Can you bear the accusations of betrayal and not betray your own soul? Anybody have problems with that? I know as a songwriter, when I first came here, I brought songs that I had written just from myself. And then once I became in the business, then it was like, oh, well, what do they want to hear? You know, what's selling this week, you know? And I found myself at a certain point writing to try to please someone else. And those songs never did please me. So that's one of my examples. Jesus often taught in parables, and it's a pretty good model for teaching. And so I'm going to do that today using some parables. And here's the first one. And this has to do with being true to yourself and your own integrity. This parable tells of an elderly man who was traveling with a boy and a donkey. And as they walked through a village, the man was leading the donkey, and the boy was walking behind the donkey. And the townspeople says the old man was a fool for not riding the donkey. So in an effort to please them, he climbed up on the animal's back. And when they came to the next village, the people said the old man was cruel to let the child walk behind him while he enjoyed the ride. So, to please them, he got off the donkey, set the boy on the animal's back, and continued on his way. And in the third village, the people accused the child of being lazy for making that old man walk. And the suggestion was made that they both ride. So the man climbed on and they set off again. And in the fourth village, the townspeople were indignant at the cruelty to the donkey because he was made to carry two people. So the old man and the boy decided that maybe the critics were right. So they got off and they started carrying the donkey. And as they crossed a bridge, they lost their grip on the animal and it fell into the river and drowned. So the moral of the story is if you live your life trying to please others, you will eventually lose your, let's say, donkey. Have you ever found a time when you lost your donkey because you listened to the criticism of others? We all have. We all have. So just notice for a moment. Notice with no judgment. Feel that experience. Just breathe and let it be okay. We've all done it. We've all tried to please other people. The second parable to illustrate this same idea is the story told of a lighthouse keeper who worked on a rocky stretch of coastline, probably up in Maine somewhere, and he received his new supply of oil once a month to keep the light burning. And not being far from the shore, he had frequent guests to his lighthouse. And one night, a woman from the village came begging oil to keep her family warm. And another time, a father asked for some to use in his lamp. And another needed some to lubricate a squeaky wheel. And since all the requests seemed legitimate, the lighthouse keeper tried to please everyone and granted all them the oil that they needed. And towards the end of the month, he noticed that the supply of oil was starting to run very low. And soon it was gone, and the beacon light went out. And that night, several ships were wrecked, and many lives were lost. And when the authorities investigated, the man was very sorry. And to his excuses and his pleading, their reply was, "You were given the oil for one purpose, to keep that light burning." So the old lighthouse keeper walked away, shattered from the mistake that he had made, never to light the way for a ship again. And admittedly, in this human experience, there are times when we must make decisions that may appear to be self-centered. That's what we're afraid of when we're not pleasing people, right? But it may mean that we need to be centered in self and know that divine selfishness is okay when we're being true to ourselves. The second one is, can you live with failure and still stand on the edge of the lake and shout to the sliver of the full moon, yes? Look at these, or listen to these following biblical figures who overcame their personal failures in history. Abraham was too old. Isaac was a daydreamer. Jacob was a liar. Leah was unattractive. Joseph was abused and abandoned. Moses had a stuttering problem. Gideon was afraid. Samson was a womanizer. Jeremiah and Timothy were too young. David was an adulterer and a murderer. Elijah was suicidal. Isaiah preached naked. Jonah ran from God. Job went bankrupt. John the Baptist ate bugs. Peter denied Jesus. The disciples fell asleep while praying. The Samaritan woman was divorced more than once. Paul was too religious. Timothy had an ulcer. And, for heaven's sake, Lazarus was dead. So if all these people could go and rise to the level that thousands of years after their existence that we're still reading about them, then perhaps we can too. Perhaps we can look past our human foibles and our failures and find success in our lives. The third one is, can you see your own beauty even when it's not pretty every day? And if you can, source your own life from its presence. Elizabeth Gilbert has a book called Big Magic, and she says to talk to yourself in a very direct and real way. Anybody talk to themselves? It's okay. It's okay. And when you're not able to see your own beauty, talk to yourself in a very direct way. And she puts it this way in her sense of humor. She says, over time I've found the right tone of voice, to use myself. It's best to be insistent but affable. Repeat yourself, but don't get shrill. Speak to your darkest and most negative interior voices the way a hostage negotiator speaks to a violent psychopath. Calmly but firmly. Most of all, never back down. You cannot afford to back down. The life you are negotiating to save, after all, is your own. Who the hell do you think you are? Your darkest interior voices will demand. It's funny you should ask, you can reply. I'll tell you who I am. I am a child of God, just like anyone else. I am a citizen of this universe. The fact that I'm here at all is evidence that I have the right to be here. I have a right to my own voice and a right to my own vision. I have a right to collaborate with creativity because I myself am a product and a consequence of creation. I'm on a mission of artistic liberation, so let the girl go. Or in my case, let the boy go. See, now you're the one doing the talking. What would your life be if you spoke to yourself in that way, when you're not seeing your own beauty? When you're not remembering that back of the one which you see in the mirror is the divine image? Because one of the ways that we diminish ourselves is through our habitual pushing away of the good that's trying to come our way. Anybody do that? refuse it. So if anyone pays you a compliment this week, say thank you. Receive it. Thank you. And receive. So today you've been called to make a connection with the sacred self within you, a deeper and deeper connection, not by just accepting, by loving the fullness of who you are, integrated and whole, by being able to be true to yourself, even if it means disappointing another. It means to live with failure and still stand on the edge of the lake and shout to the sliver of the moon, yes! And to see beauty even when it's not pretty. Every day, and to source your own life from that presence. And as you do those things, you'll move into a deeper experience of divine love, deeper into the fuller understanding of who you really are. All God, all beautiful, all divine. And so it is. Now's the time.